kitchen. So in this week's video tutorial, I have a little treat idea for you. So I'm going to be showing you how you can make these really fun ice cream cakesicles. Now these cakesicles are made with candy melts on the outside, even the cones, and they're filled with cake on the inside. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is make the cone. Now I'm going to be making these out of candy melts, but you can also use chocolate. And I've got a mold here from Cake London. Now this mold has two halves on each side, so it's going to make two completely full 3D cones. Now this is one of their 3-part molds. So you have the outer shell, and this one just has the cone texture on the inside. It also has a line which runs around the mold, and this just shows how much chocolate or candy melts you need to fill. You then have these two soft inserts, and you have the back piece. Now one of the things I love about these molds is on the front it actually tells you a guide to how much chocolate or candy melts you're going to need for each part. So this one is 17 grams. Now if you want to have a go at using these molds, I do have a 10% off discount code for your first order of chocolate molds across the Cake London website. All you have to do is enter Cakes by Linz at the checkout, and I will put a link in the description below with all the details. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to be using candy melts in my mold. You can also use real chocolate, and I will put a link in the description below to a video where I use white chocolate in these molds and show you how to temper your chocolate first. So I'm going to melt these down in the microwave, first of all for around 30 seconds, and then intervals of around 10 to 15 seconds until I can see that most of those buttons have melted. I'm then going to take it out and just stir through those final buttons until we've got a nice smooth mixture. Now that's all melted down, it's ready to colour. Now there are a few different options for colouring chocolate or candy melts. If you're using a food colour, you want to make sure that it's oil based. Some food gels and different food colorings are water based, and if you add water into chocolate or candy melts, it can cause it to seize, which means you won't be able to use it in your mold. For this one, I'm actually going to be using some dust colors. So I've got some edible tints here by Sugar Flare. I've got the buttermilk, the cream, and the brown. I'm going to start with a small amount of buttermilk, mix this through, and that color just dissolves through our candy melts. That's given us this light ivory color. I'm then going to add a little bit of cream to that. So we're just trying to get the color of a waffle cone. And to that I'm going to add a tiny amount of brown. So that's giving us this really nice dark ivory color, which is perfect to use for our cones. Taking the top half of my molds, I'm going to fill them up until I reach the line. Give it a slight tap to get out any air bubbles. I can then take the soft plastic middles and I'm going to push that into my mold. And taking the backing piece, just flip that over. Now I want to make sure that it's going right the way to the end. So I'm just pushing that chocolate along with my finger. Once the candy melts are in our mold, I'm going to pop that into the fridge for around 10 to 15 minutes until those candy melts have hardened. Once these have come out of the fridge, I'm going to start by removing the back piece and then take off some of that excess. I then want to take the insert and just remove this from the middle and do the same to the other side. Flip my mold over, lightly push on the top. Now I'm going to go around the edge and just remove any excess, brushing my thumb along the edge. Now as you can see, the piece of chocolate that was holding the two parts together is really thin, so you can just break that apart. And I'm just going to use a knife along that top edge. So there we have the separate pieces for our ice cream cones. So we have the front where we have this cone texture, and we have this nice smooth inside. Now one of the things I love about these molds is by using the 3-part molds, you get the same thickness of chocolate or candy melts all the way through your shape. For my cakesicles, I'm going to be adding 2 of these together to create a 3D cone. You can also use these maybe on the top of your cakes if you're creating a melting ice cream cake, for example, or you could use just the halves on their own up against the side of your cakes to create different ice cream effects. I've got a plate and I've just placed on my metal smoothing tool. I'm then going to use my kitchen blowtorch to heat this up. If you didn't have a metal scraping tool, you could also use a baking tray. You just want something that's nice and smooth. I can then take my first cone and just run this over the top, stick two halves together, run my finger up that join just to take off any excess. And if you have any gaps, you can just use some of that melted chocolate just in those gaps. But that's going to give you this 3D chocolate cone. So then we've got our two cones all ready to use for our Cakesicles. The next thing to do is to create the cake mixture that's going inside. Now you can use any kind of cake. I've just got some vanilla cupcakes here and some vanilla buttercream. Now I will put a link in the description below to the recipes that I used for both of these. I'm starting by just crumbling down my cupcakes. Once that's all crumbled down, I'm going to take a small amount of buttercream at a time, mix that through. We're looking for our mixture to cling together and resemble dough. Now for each of my ice cream Cakesicles or cake pops, I'm gonna need around 125 grams of mixture. So as you can see, it all starts to cling together. If we try and form that into a ball, it's gonna keep its shape. When working with the cones, you can either use just a small glass to place those in to hold them in place, or if you've got an ice cream stand. So this is just a Wilton ice cream stand. As I said, each ice cream is gonna take around 125 grams of cake mixture. So I'm gonna start with just a small ball. So this one measures just over 1 inch in diameter. I'm gonna taper down the bottom just so I can squish that into my cone. And you wanna make sure that the cake is coming all the way up to the top so that when we add the ball on top, it's gonna stick. I've then got the rest of my cake mixture and I'm gonna squish that into a ball, but I don't want to roll it so it's completely flat. So what we're trying to create is, if you scoop the ice cream out with an ice cream scoop and push it onto the top of your ice cream, I'm then gonna take a piece of kitchen paper, wrap this around the cone just while I'm working on it, as that cake mixture can be a little bit greasy. So I want to push that on, just making sure that it's nice and secured. Now I want to create that kind of dip where you push the ice cream on. So I'm going to take a round circle cutter and I'm just going to place that over the top and just carefully push in a line all the way around. Now around the edge, I want to make sure that this is going to stick to my cone, as it's going to be quite top heavy when we go to cover it in the rest of our candy melts. So I'm going to work around the base and just stick that against my cone. You then want to do the rest for all the cones that you're creating. Place these back into your ice cream stand or into your glass, and you want to place these into the fridge. Now what we're looking for is that buttercream in our cake mixture to really firm up so it's nice and secure for when we add our chocolate onto the top. So I've taken my ice cream cone out of the fridge and this has been in there for around an hour, so that cake has firmed up. I've also melted down a small batch of my candy melts in the white. Now to this, I want this to look a little bit like a raspberry ripple. Now you can make your ice creams any color you like. So I'm using the Color Mill raspberry and I'm gonna add a few dots of that in. I'm then gonna mix that through, but stop before it's all combined. I've also got a piece of tin foil, so I'm going to scrunch this up, and this is just going to help me create the texture of the ice cream. I'm going to put this on with a spoon, so I'm just going to hold the cone, and it is quite top heavy, so I don't want to turn it up too much. So I'm going to take some of those candy melts and just along the bottom, just make sure I'm covering all of that cake and bringing it up onto the top. I'm just using the back of the spoon to take any excess away, especially around where we've got that little dip. Now, because that cake is so cold, it's going to mean that the candy melts are going to dry quite quickly. So I'm going to take that scrunched up piece of tin foil and just push it into those semi-dry candy melts. This is just going to create a texture on my ice cream. And what you can also do, add a bit coming from the bottom just to create a little drip. So there we have our ice cream cakesicle. Now, what ice cream would be complete without some sauce and some sprinkles? So I've melted down a small amount of milk chocolate, or you can use coloured candy melts. I've added this into a piping bag just to give me a little bit more control. And I'm just gonna add it on the top as you would some normal ice cream sauce. Now to this, I'm gonna add some sprinkles. And for this one, I'm using the Colour Up sprinkles by Happy Sprinkles. And these ones just have such fun colours. Now I do also have a 10% off discount code for Happy Sprinkles. All you have to do to get the discount is enter HappyLins10 at the checkout on their website or on the website of the cake decorating company. And I will again put all the details for this discount in the description below. And when you're happy with how that's looking, I'm going to pop that back in my stand so that it can dry. Now, as an alternative, my favourite flavour ice cream is mint choc chips, so I'm going to make this one look like that. So I've got my ice cream cakesicle, a small amount of chocolate chips, my tin foil, and I've melted down some more of my candy melts. Now to this, I've got another one of my oil-based colours, so this is the Mint by Colour Mill. Again, taking a spoon, I'm going to start on the bottom. Now for the top of each of your ice creams, you're going to need around 40 to 45 grams of candy melts. Once that's on, I'm going to push in some of those chocolate chips before I go round with the tin foil. So there we've got a mint choc chip version. So here we have just a really fun idea where you can create these ice cream cakesicles. You can either then use them to decorate your cakes, you could maybe add them into treat boxes, or you could put them into an ice cream stand and serve them at your party. These are ice creams that aren't gonna melt. I really hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial and will enjoy making your own ice cream cakesicles. If you have enjoyed the video, as always, don't forget to give it a like. And if you'd like to see more videos like this and you haven't already, then don't forget you can subscribe to the Cakesicles YouTube channel. You can also hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button, and this will just alert you every time I upload a new video. Now I will put a list of all the tools that I've used in the description below the video. So until next time, bye!